Good evening and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Charlie Huntington and I am Public Relations Chairperson for Life Sciences PA. Life Sciences PA is the voice of advancement for Pennsylvania's bioscience, medical device, CRO, and healthcare IT industries. Tonight, we continue our special series on science leaders in our local community. Before we get started, I'd like to remind our viewers that from time to time, financial issues relating to life sciences, healthcare, or technology matters or companies may be discussed on the show. These discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since this program is pre-recorded and shown at a later date, please keep in mind that the information may no longer be current. You should always check with your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm pleased to have with me tonight as my co-host, Kimon Hatza. Kimon is a business attorney and partner at GrowthCounsel LLC in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His focus is in the life sciences, healthcare, and information technology areas. Welcome, Kimon.
Thanks, Charlie. Happy to be here.
We've got a great show planned tonight, but before we get going with our special guest, can you fill our viewers in as to what's new with your practice and maybe trends you've been seeing since our last show?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. We have been actually fairly busy on both financing transactions and M&A transactions for companies in both the life sciences and technology spaces in particular. As for myself, I am currently working on a financing for a medical device company, and I'm also working on an M&A transaction on behalf of a company that's in life sciences consulting. We've been hearing from our former colleagues at big law firms that things have been slowing down a little bit on the transactional side. I've even read that some of the biggest firms have been laying off folks and downsizing a bit. That we have not seen that yet. Obviously, we're very attentive to those sorts of trends to the extent that they are happening, but it has not hit our practice yet. So we've been pretty steady. Fingers crossed that will continue.
Have you all gotten any color as to whether it's slowing down regionally or nationally?
What I've seen is that it's more nationally than regionally. Okay. Again, it's just sort of early stages, I think, and we'll see if anything continues in that direction or whether things improve.
Not surprising at all with all the the gene manufacturing that's going on locally here. Thank you, Kimon.
Sure.
I'd like to remind our viewers for questions to be answered on future shows. Here's how you do it.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
It's with great pleasure that I introduce Zyg Porada. Mr. Porada is the Chief Executive Officer of DirectSync Surgical. Prior to DirectSync Surgical, Mr. Porada was a managing partner of CGZ Holdings, LLC. He's also held senior level medical affairs positions at Boston Scientific and Medtronic. He has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and a second degree in biomedical engineering from Johns Hopkins University, where he ran cross country and track, and he has an MBA from Loyola University in Maryland. When Zyg is not working, he enjoys spending time with his wife, his 3 kids, and their dog outdoors, running, hiking, and fishing. Zyg, welcome to the show.
Hi, Charlie. Good to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Zyg, tell us, how did your background prepare you to lead a medical device company?
I'd say it's a collection of things. I think foundationally, the engineering degree kind of gave me the clear thinking kind of opportunity to establish logical thought. And then ultimately the MBA kind of helped me communicate the ideas a little bit more clear in the business context. Outside of the educational piece, the experiential piece has primarily focused on medical device and the clinical medical affairs side of the business. Ultimately, I think those experiences were good, but I think the variety of experiences, both in therapeutic areas as well as responsibilities. So that these areas included therapeutically cardiac pacing, defibrillation for a good portion of my time at strategics in the medical device space. And then ultimately started working in the ablation space. And from there, I transitioned into the spine fusion biologic space, ultimately culminating in some consulting externally with startups and doing some angel investing. So I think collectively, the experience that I've had has been pretty varied. And more recently, very focused on helping businesses, startups, commercialize products, whether it's through smart evidence generation strategies or ultimately now working with DirectSync Surgical to get them and their product up in kind of where it needs to be in order to be funded. So ultimately, it's been a good experience getting to the point.
It's a great background. Zyg, tell us about DirectSync Surgical and please describe your product.
Sure. So we're a spinal fusion device. We provide interbody space stability. Very similar to all the past devices that are on the market currently doing this, but our product is has added electrical stimulation. So we are promoting or supporting the bone growth to achieve fusion faster based on the animal data that we've generated so far with the product, as well as we're just with our recent SBIR grant working on integrating the sensor functionality with this implant. So we're able to deliver therapy while the patient walks around and trend diagnostics over time to help improve patient outcomes. And we do it without a battery. So
wow. Okay. And so what approvals will you need from FDA or any other regulatory bodies?
Sure. Back in September, we had our first meeting with FDA. It was a pre-sub where we were pursuing a de novo pathway, and ultimately, based on the fact we're delivering therapeutic stimulation and a diagnostic, they recommended strongly that we pursue the pre-market approval pathway, which will involve an in-human trials that ultimately will take a couple of years to execute and put us around 2008, 2009 with hopefully approval.
So Zyg, 6 months ago, you were living in Memphis, Tennessee. I think you may be the first guest who has moved from Memphis, Tennessee, and you relocated your family and you to the Philadelphia area. How has the move been for your family and you?
It's been great. We've gotten back to family. My in-laws are in the Catonsville area. And frankly, getting back to the East Coast and being in a town with some pretty strong national spirit with teams, sports teams has been exciting. Not to mention being only a mile away from Valley Forge National Park, so some great outdoors activities, as well as getting downtown to see the Museum of Art, in addition to the great schools. So we're integrating well. It's been a good 7 months now.
Zyg, for any new product that will be coming on the market, I often like to know from our guests, are there competitive products that are currently out there in the marketplace? And if so, how is DirectSync Surgical's product different from what's currently being used?
Sure. Yeah, there are quite a few competitive products in the passive space. There's also competitors with biologics, which are also helpful in promoting bone growth. And then there are the adjunct battery-powered electrical stimulation products that are also in the market today. Those products predominantly are controlled by the top 5 strategic spinal fusion companies. And ultimately, what we're doing that's different is that we're eliminating patient compliance So this electrical stimulation that is currently on the market is either worn externally, and patients need to put it on and wear it. It's kind of cumbersome and inconvenient, or it's implanted, and in one approach, which then needs to be explanted 6 months later when the battery is depleted. So our product doesn't need to be explanted, and so we're addressing that electrical stimulation market that way. As it relates to the stabilization market, the products are all passive. There aren't any smart implementations on the market today, and so we're bringing technology and kind of miniaturizing kind of things that I think take for granted that haven't been innovated or placed in the spinal space, and looking to try and create some therapeutic as well as diagnostic benefits for patients. So digitizing the OR is where we're stepping this particular product family towards. And then ultimately, as it relates to the biologics market that we're just potentially addressing, in that case, it ranges from a variety of products. So it's some that are just simple scaffolding filler to scaffolding with a lot of signals that the benefit and treat the help the biology promote that bone growth. They're attracting stem cells to differentiate into osteoblasts to preferentially lay bone, or simply trying to enhance the signaling without extra swelling. So it's a whole spectrum of therapy provided by those biologics. I'll pause there.
Okay. So just for our viewers who might not be as up on some of the terminology, can you talk a little bit about what biologics are, and then specifically how they're being used in your product?
Sure. So biologics, ultimately, when you are doing a spinal fusion single level, you're evacuating the disc. And so biologics are meant to fill in some of the space between that your interbody spacer supports. You place it inside the fusion window. Every one of those kind of plastic or metal spacers has a window that can receive a biological component. Some of those components are simply, like I said, scaffolding, just filler, ceramic, maybe, or like I said earlier, they could be more sophisticated products that are recombinant proteins that are all helpful in helping the body kind of close the gap. So you achieve fusion by growing bone from the vertebral body above and below the disc that got removed. And so ultimately, the side of the more active part of the component, generally speaking, synthetically speaking, the greater chance you have some sort of either extra bone growth, or if it's not bone growth, some acute pain that is a result of extra inflammation caused acutely. And then in the case of some biologics, they're contraindicated for patients with a history of cancer. So it's an opportunity for our product to play as well. So the biologics can be used in our product. We suspect that less will be used because of the effect of our electrical stimulation.
Okay.
So, Zyg, we've had over 10 years worth of guests, and I'm comfortable saying that this may be the first type of product where both Kimon's family and my family have both been personally affected. When you look at the landscape, I'll just speak about my family situation. We actually had to go over to Switzerland to get treatment because at the time, and this was about 2003, if you were doing fusion, you couldn't do fusion and disc replacement at the same time. I forget that chicken and egg, but it was a lot easier. Europe was much more in front of where we were, I guess, here in the US, even though it was all US product that was being used. Where would you say the US is right now versus the rest of the world in terms of back surgery?
That's a great question. I think back surgery today, there are products that are available in the market in OUS, in the EU specifically, that aren't available here in the US. And so there are likely good reasons for that. So some of the regulatory pathways that exist, I think, are going to increasingly challenge that to where, there are some big changes with MDR in Europe that are working on trying to make the process more strict and a lot more data requirements. So maybe more strict than what FDA requires currently. So it's kind of an interesting evolution that is kind of in flux currently. And so today, I think there may be more options on the spinal side in Europe than what you have in the US. But I think ultimately that may be shifting around as more innovation is, it's maybe an easier pathway coming through the US.
Thanks, Zyg.
Zyg, for many of the CEOs or other representatives of early stage companies that we have on the show, financing is an issue that's like almost nearest and dearest to their hearts. The frequent story we hear is no sooner have they completed a round of financing that they're looking for the next round, and it's difficult, particularly in this field where you might have several years of trials and things before you get to the market. With that in mind, I was wondering how your company is currently funded and what you're looking to down the road.
Sure. Yeah, our current funding has come primarily from our NIH grants. So we've been awarded more than $2 million in NIH, SBIR, STTR grants. So we've also received funding early on from the Institute for the Advancement of Medical Innovation, which is an institute associated with the University of Kansas, to help get us in our original animal study. So we are currently carrying a $450,000 convertible note. And then we raised $50,000 from private angel investors to date. So we're currently trying to raise $5 million to get us through to our preclinical work, which includes integrating that sensor, satisfying all of our V&V testing, as well as doing another animal study with that fully integrated product. And then ultimately, what was the second part of your question? Sorry.
No, I was just, what are you looking to down? So I think you answered it because you said you're in the process of trying to raise $5 million, and that was what I was. That was the follow up.
Got it.
So Zyg, you've been in Philadelphia now for 7 months. Which industry groups have been most helpful to you since you arrived in Philadelphia professionally?
Yeah, I'd say professionally, Life Sciences PA comes to the top. A lot of educational content, as well as good networking. And Beacon, frankly, both of those have combined to help me accelerate a lot of early introductions to a lot of the local angel investing groups. Mm-hmm. So as well as having opportunities to talk with CEOs who are currently involved in those same networking groups. Ultimately, great. I feel like I've been very welcome, and it's been great to be able to bounce ideas off of, especially in this tough environment right now with raising funds.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you. And for our viewers, they, of course, are familiar with the Statewide Industry Trade Association, Life Sciences PA, that I've been a part of as a volunteer and a member for going on 20 years now. But our viewers may not be as familiar with Beacon. Beacon was actually started some 20 years ago by a man named Chris Pavlidis. And initially, it was sort of LinkedIn before LinkedIn. But initially, it was called the Greater Philadelphia Senior Executives Group. And Zyg, you may be more up to speed on this than me, but there's something like 10 different industry subgroups, of which life science is one. They have human capital, they have a CEO group, they have private equity, and some others. But that, just for our viewers, that's what Beacon is. Zyg, how have you found the collaboration to be with other CEOs in Philadelphia?
It's been very, very warm. People have been very giving of their time. It's always interesting to hear what they're doing as well. So there seems to be this interest in sharing as well as supporting each other. So I'm early in my career as a CEO. So I'm trying to accelerate my learning, and I don't have a lot to give. All of the CEOs I've met with, I'd say it's two handfuls, so about 10 CEOs so far that ultimately have been very supportive. It's been great.
That's great. I bet you that they maybe covet even more than you are aware your medical device background and your time at Medtronic and Boston Scientific. That's quite a resume. Tell us about your relationship with the University of Kansas, and what does their partnership look like?
Sure. So I'd say today the partnership is can be summed up quickly kind of on the IP side. So the University of Kansas and DirectSync Surgical, we've got a licensing agreement for the IP. They've submitted a patent and it's been published around the technology, specifically the piezo technology. It's because of KU that we have the relationship with the strategic partner that manufactures that piezo, as well as the micro circuits that we deal with. And frankly, KU has been helpful in terms of being kind of an expert in piezo. As a result of Dr. Freeze and Dr. Arnold, both were the founders and were working there originally, and developed the concept that ultimately supported the SBIR grants through her kind of peer-reviewed articles she had published and his expertise in spine fusion. Altogether, currently, it's kind of manifested with our additional support from the KU Innovation Park. We've got a little bit of space there, which is helping us prep for our animal study and doing some product builds that are ongoing under the current SBIR grant we've gotten.
So as you look at, the successes that you'll have with fundraising and so on, and you're building your company out, will you do that virtually? Will you have more of a presence in Kansas than you have now? Will you have more of a presence in Memphis or more of a presence in Philadelphia? Or it doesn't matter? You guys, as I started with this question, it's going to be more virtual.
Yeah, that's a good question. Currently we're virtual. Our strategic partner actually is based in Pennsylvania. It's got one office near State College, another near Williamsport. So there's a strong kind of manufacturing component of those pieces. Currently, the assembly is being done at KU, and so there's a Kansas component to that. I think we're open to being smart about how we raise capital and how we get the local economies. We want to be there's certainly an eye on trying to be a good steward in all the communities that we're able to touch, frankly. So I'll leave it at that. I think that's the aspiration.
Great. And so what would success look like for you and for DirectSync Surgical in the next 5 years, Zyg?
Yeah. When you say 5 years, it kind of takes us out to 2028, which...
Yeah, I can't believe it. That's right. And
right.
2019 was 4 years ago now, right? Crazy.
Well said. I think at that point, if I suspect that we'll have submitted our PMA and we'll be engaged with FDA, answering questions and the back and forth that usually ensues, with the plan towards being acquired with any luck outright, or maybe they acquire the IP and they acquire the product, but they still want to have us build the product and source the product. So open to a lot of different possibilities, but that's where I think we'll be talking about some type of position with our clinical trial completed and dealing with FDA.
Zyg, one of the things I like to ask some of our CEO guests on the show who have become entrepreneurs. We've had in the past few years there were a number of people that were displaced by life sciences or technology companies in the Philadelphia region. Many of these people are highly educated people, that were working on a particular compound or product or something like that, and they're looking to start a new company around the technology that they're familiar with, perhaps licensing it from their prior employer who's not pursuing it. I was wondering what advice you have for folks who are considering starting their own companies after having not been entrepreneurs prior to that.
Sure, that's a great question. I think I can speak specifically to that. I did with one of my employers pursue some licensing with a product of theirs, actually. That it was about a year of dialoguing and ultimately did come to fruition, unfortunately. But I think if you're trying to work with your current employer on that subject matter, I would push really hard to be really quick about it I think finding out that they want to license or don't want to license is something that can happen faster than what it did for me. So engaging the BD folks, leveraging your network to try and get in front of the decision makers to see what their reaction is going to be. And obviously the market's going to have an influence over whether they're interested too. But expanding indications on a product therapy area that you're familiar with, I think that's a great opportunity to get your feet wet at least and be very successful given that background.
Great, thank you for that. One more question. This is, I guess, you've been in different markets, so you're recently to the Philadelphia market, but based on your observations to date, I was wondering if you have a sense what the biggest challenges or opportunities are for the greater Philadelphia area in terms of sustaining a vibrant medical device or life sciences company business.
So a little bit of angel investing in Memphis, and I've come new here as a CEO for a startup. And what I'm seeing that I can't really speak to the challenges specifically or what things need to happen, but certainly I've seen where we have talent, you have access to capital, and you have access to the people who have got the problem that needs to be solved, that you can get some validation that your solution fits. So getting that product and that market fit with your product kind of crystallized would go a long way. So having the infrastructure or the ecosystem that supports that sort of active engagement. And what I'm finding right now is that there seem to be a lot of subject matter experts in the space around Philly who are willing to give their time and expertise and kind of help you move through your kind of validation phase. So more of that. Continue to do what you guys are doing and I use that in a very royal way, I guess. But I'm pleased with what I'm finding in the Philadelphia area. So
great, thank you,
Zyg. I think Kimon would join me in saying if we could get 100 more people to move to Philadelphia like Zyg, it'd be even more of a wonderful place than it is right now. So thank you for what you and your family have brought to the Philadelphia area. Thank you for the success that I know you are enjoying now, but you and the employees are going to reap benefits for years and years by being here. So really appreciate you being in this community and engaging to the level that you've already engaged. We really appreciate you being a guest on our show tonight. Kimon, thank you. I want to remind our viewers that next week, Nick Yezi, who's a CPA and a tax consultant, will be discussing tax matters. He's with Cannon Capital CPAs. And until then, we wish you a good night and thank you for tuning into Money Matters.